Okay, number one, listen. Now, I know a lot of you will be like, I listen. I listen all the time. Listen intently, or as Tom Peters calls it, listen fiercely. Because when you listen fiercely, you will notice words that are missing from a sentence. You'll notice the emphasis that people have on particular things. You'll notice the type of body language, tone of voice, and all of these marvelous signals that we get when we are paying full attention. It will make a massive difference to you because you will understand far more of what's going on. And here's the amazing thing: the person who is telling you and you are listening to what they're saying will feel like $1 million because you are valuing them, you are present in the space.
I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that'll reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, I'm thrilled to speak with Sandra Thompson, a customer experience expert, emotional intelligence coach, and lifelong learner. I first met Sandra when I helped her build out her live streaming studio space, not knowing that she was an expert in her field. Sandra's fascination with human behavior led her to study emotional intelligence and branding in her master's dissertation and become a certified EI coach under Dr. Daniel Goleman. From accidentally becoming a teacher of professional behaviors and customer management to presenting a TEDx talk on the relationship between EI and remote work, Sandra has always followed her passion for learning and teaching. In our conversation, Sandra shares how emotional intelligence can improve performance, employee happiness, and customer satisfaction in businesses and individuals alike. Join us for an inspiring conversation about Sandra's journey and the power of emotional intelligence. Sandra, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And secondly, thank you for sorting out an issue. That's the wizardry of you, is that I say, yeah, I'll do that for you. Oh, by the way, can you just fix this for me? So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm always available to, help my friends, help my good friends in figuring out technical issues. But what really inspired me is your background in customer experience and all the things that you've been doing for the past, I don't even know how many years you've been doing it, but it's really amazing because it connects me with on another level, being a user experience designer myself, being somebody that's working with customers, hand in hand. It's really amazing to see your journey.
Well, thank you. It's been one of those journeys where I've kind of gone with the flow, which if you ask my family if I go with the flow, they'd say absolutely not. But it's been one of those things where opportunities have come up and I've just thrown myself at them. And when I think about even last year and the work that you and I did together, the stuff, in fact, it might even be the year before that, to prepare me to create some of the content that I've been sharing, If you'd asked me 5 years ago if I'd be doing this, I would say very unlikely. Whereas now I can't even imagine my life without having done it. So thank you. That's kind.
Absolutely. So I love taking a walk down memory lane because it helps me understand the philosophy, the concept, our mindset, and what enables us to, take the path that we have. And like you mentioned, you like to think that you go with the flow, but it's a flow that you've created for yourself in your mind. And that's why people or your family doesn't agree with your mindset. So let's rediscover your origin story, because we know the journey is long, and I'm sure there's a few stories in there that brings out your essence. So let's start where you want to start.
Okay. Well, I think we'll start with we'll start quite early on, actually. So I did a degree in a particular topic where I just wanted to work for the airlines. That's all I wanted to do. And when I wasn't quite good enough at maths and didn't get onto their graduate trainee program, it was a bit like, well, what do I do now? And so I fell into marketing. And that was probably one of the greatest things that happened to me, because my fascination with people, my fascination with humans and their behavior was instantly piqued. I can't quite describe to you how motivated I was then to work in marketing and to get some qualifications in marketing and to kind of steadily work up a kind of career where I had reasonable sized teams, where we were doing some amazing brand work, and we were doing some really quite at the time kind of cutting edge customer insight work. And I was just intrigued by how people were wired, why they made the decisions that they made. And so I worked for a couple of airlines in the end, funnily enough. I managed to get in the back door, not through the graduate trainee program, and also worked for a couple of charities. And that mix of something with purpose and the greater good was quite a good mix for me with commercial once in a while. So if you can imagine a sandwich of different sectors, I was doing private kind of commercial shareholder, then I was doing public sector charity work. And I think that whole desire to try and help improve things is the kind of thread that connects everything that I do. So if we fast forward to a role I was in a charity, they had a reorganization. I didn't fancy the jobs that they had lined up for me, so I started my own business. And that was when, oh my gosh, 12 years ago, I started as a customer experience consultant. And I was very fortunate that my network responded to me saying, oh, I think I might start my business. Anyone got any leads? And I landed my first gig. Not long after that, I managed to do some work for Arsenal Football Club. Nice. So that normally divides the audience just there between Spurs supporters, Arsenal supporters, Liverpool, etc. Anyway, I was a big Arsenal supporter. So at that point, I was thinking, this is ridiculous. This isn't even work. I just want to do this. I'm having such a great time and I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Who even knew that could be a thing? So I felt very fortunate at that time. And as a slight curveball here, I was doing the consultancy work, and then I thought, you know what? I need to do something in primary schools. And this actually might be something you don't know. So I set up this little business creating habitats, wildlife habitats for primary school children. I didn't do it. These were ecologists who knew the difference between a slug and a snail. I had no idea, but I knew that I needed children to understand more about nature. So I did that for a little while I carried on doing consultancy. And that really fired something up in me, the opportunity to kind of give back. And there's a connection here because I then went into a college and said, oh, I can help you with your student experience. And they said, we don't need that, but you can teach if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself saying, yes, okay, I'll teach.
Okay.
Never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably one of the most fulfilling, it continues to be one of the most fulfilling things that I have done. So I think I'm coming back to, if someone says, do you want to do something? I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I like learning. So what can happen? So where have we been? I did a career in marketing, set up my own business, did a bit of bug stories in primary schools, started teaching, and then became an emotional intelligence coach. And the reason why that happened is because I was teaching and the college applied for a TEDx, to run a TEDx event. The students asked me if I would speak. All right, yeah, why not? Not done that before. And then I found myself dusting down my dissertation from my master's, which was about emotional intelligence. I'd forgotten I'd written. How ridiculous is that? One of the most painful, stressful 12 months of my entire life I'd forgotten about. So I decided after doing the TEDx to go off and learn from Daniel Goleman himself and a few people in his faculty. And now we're here. So where am I now? So I am a bit of a coach. I still do some teaching. I do some consultancy work, but not only in customer experience, but also employee experience. And where I think I get the most energy from is, one, learning, and two, bringing disparate things together to try and make sense of them, which is why I came to you, because I wanted to do LinkedIn Lives. I wanted to do a summit. I wanted to do like learning lounges online. And I wanted it to look the business. And I just didn't have the skill set to be able to do that. So if you are still listening, listeners, well done. You get some extra points.
They absolutely do. I mean, I see a lot of threads in there which show me, your passion for learning. And you mentioned you love learning. So you kept saying, yes, I will try that out. That sounds pretty fun. What can go wrong? And of course, the magic is in the mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Because when we make a mistake and when people say, oh, if my teacher can make a mistake and still teach us, there's a lot for us to learn, and that it's okay to make mistakes. And the reason I keep bringing the magic is in the mistakes is because a lot of the times we're told not to get it perfect.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about how I'm not doing a live show myself because I feel that I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. But this reinforces that, hey, what can go wrong? People are only going to find it more attractive because they see themselves in us.
Do you know that I want to respond to that in a couple of ways. The first thing I want to say is I think I might have been one of the, I'm going to be bold here, I might have been one of the first teachers that my students had who had the courage and the conviction to say, I didn't get that right. And we're going to redo that session, or I'm sorry, I made a mistake just then. Let me correct myself, or I apologize for such and such.
Yeah.
And, Brené Brown talks about this a lot, doesn't she? To be clear is to be kind, to be unclear is to be unkind, and lots of things about courage and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And, it's not a comfortable space, but the response I got was amazing, because all of a sudden that whole barrier that sometimes exists between the teacher and the learner was gone. We were all learning. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing has completely gone out of my head, but it will come back. Yes, it is. Right. So there's a scientific, you actually might know this. There's a scientific experiment that was undertaken where a group of people were shown two scenarios. One scenario where a guy goes up onto a rostrum to get something, he comes back down after winning a prize, and the other, he goes up on the rostrum and he trips as he comes down. And what a surprise. The people who observed the guy who tripped liked him far more because he was human. It's called the pratfall effect.
Yes.
And you just think, why don't we allow ourselves to be human? Because actually we will create more connection because we're being human. It's bizarre, isn't it?
It is really bizarre. Because number one, people are already scared that they are not going to be perfect. And when they see perfection, which a lot of the social media is flaunting around, perfection in magazines, perfection in movies, perfection in everything, it kind of reminds us how imperfect we are.
Yeah.
Which then creates that doubt, which then creates the self-imposed, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Kind of things.
When I look back on some of the howlers, I mean, I'm able to laugh about them now.
Yeah.
At the time, they were still quite painful, but the fact is, if you trust that, well, actually, the question I asked, let me rephrase this. The question I asked my students, actually, I asked my partner's children, what is the worst that could happen? What is the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
You approach a company for work experience, they say no. That's the worst that could happen.
Yeah.
And I think that was my parents, they were like, well, just try it. What's the worst that can happen? No, okay, well, the worst that could happen is that I'm a bit embarrassed for a bit. No one cares. No one cares. No one noticed. And the next time you ask if it's still a no, keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's the only reason why I got the gig with Arsenal Football Club, is because I was cheeky and I just thought, no, I'm going to keep going. And I did.
Oh, man, I love that. Love that so much.
And I think there's an opportunity as well to, without getting all woo-woo, there's an opportunity to breathe into some of this stuff. Because honestly, some of the things that I've done in my life, you just have to leap. It's the leap of faith.
Yes.
And if you can recognize that you're feeling a particular way, but this will pass, just grabbing it.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know what's on the other side. You really don't until you take that leap.
I love that, a really good book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. Really amazing book. It unlocked a lot of things in my mind, and I started telling everybody, you guys need to go read this book, listen to this book, because it's so powerful. And the second part where you mentioned, you've got to take the leap and you've got to ignore your own, let's try to get to, is you've got to not only have the courage to do it, but also the support from our surrounding family. I think that's a really huge part. Your parents were like, what's the worst that you're not going to die? What's the worst that can happen? So they were encouraging. So we need encouraging people around us. We need to surround ourselves, our cheerleaders, so that we can take a chance and do the things that scare us.
Yeah. And also, when things go wrong, and they will go wrong, to sit in it for long enough to learn and then to move on. Now, the other thing about my family is that we're very competitive. Don't ever play a board game with us because everyone will be sorry.
Yeah.
But the idea that and I think it might be FOMO that was going on when I started out my career, was, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to do it because I know I can do it, and I know I can do it really well.
Yeah.
And that's not always healthy, because it means it drives you perhaps to a point of burnout, depending on how you're wired. But I do know that that was one of the drivers when I started out in my career, was, well, I am going to own this space. And how am I going to feel when Joe Bloggs over here is suddenly saying the things that I know I want to say? And that was like a fire underneath me to get me going.
No, I love that, because you've got to have that internal desire, right, to be able to accomplish the things that we dream of. So it suits you well. I love it. From the journey that you've been on, what's been one of the most inspiring experience that you've had that was like, oh my God, I'm able to do this?
So I'm going to tell you one story which might come across as a bit random, and I know there's another one, so let me tell you this first one. So I worked in the airlines. I worked for a frequent flyer program. It's actually part British Airways now, ironically, but at the time it was a small regional airline that did a lot of domestic and European flights, loads of partners, hotels, car hire, you name it. We were involved in all of that. And I loved the relationships I had with all of those different people across Europe. They were brilliant. So when some random email came into my inbox from a charity called Childline, which is basically a call center for young people to call if they're in distress or they're anxious. It's in the UK. I don't know if it's anywhere else. And they basically sent me this email saying, could you help us raise some money? Could you give us maybe I don't know, a night in a hotel? And you guessed it, that whole, wow, you're going to get more than that. So I got in contact with all my partners and I said, we have to do a round the world ticket. I can feel it now. We have to do a round the world ticket. We're going to get flights from here to there. You're going to give me a hotel here in South America. And before you knew it, we had a round the world holiday that was going to be auctioned to raise money. And that I was 22 years old. It was quite a long time ago. And we did it, and they made a load of money. So I think that the opportunity to make a difference, which is a bit, it wasn't really my day job. I did it outside of my work hours. But the fact that these partners all stepped up, because I'd created that rapport with them, and I'd no one could question the purpose of what I was doing, because we had to do it. But the people from Germany, people from South America, they're not involved in a call center in the UK. But the fact that we all rallied together and did it, I was inspired by the willingness of people who didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it, because the credibility for them with a company that wasn't even in their geography, that is the thing. And I think that boils down to humanity. I think that is empathy. That is people using their power for good. So I think the opportunity coming my way was just incredible. And the fact that people willingly did it, that's a memory from a long time ago. So I was definitely inspired by that. And the second example I just want to give you quickly, I worked for another charity, and I did a project for the Director General, so the head person, and she was a couple of people up from me, so I wasn't a direct line report to her. So she's in charge of this whole thing. And I remember chatting to her one evening. I was there late, and I'd mentioned something about, I think, my dad, whatever, parked all of that. About 6 months later, hi, Sandra, how are you? How's your dad doing? What?
Wow.
This woman was just awesome. And she inspired an entire organization to make dramatic change. Now, this organization was like over 100 years old, but she inspired, energized, infused incredible emotional intelligence. And the fact that I, again, many years on, remember that.
Yeah.
She was a massive inspiration as a leader.
Yeah.
Incredible. I worked so hard for her because I believed in her and what she was doing. She couldn't have put a foot wrong as far as I'm concerned, really. So I think it comes from people and mission and purpose and something greater than yourself. Those are the kind of things that I think inspire me.
No, I totally love those stories because they show how human we are and how much reach all of us have, especially if we really put our mind to it and find the right partners to back a program or, bring money together.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're going to take a really short break, and when we get back, Sandra's going to share 3 hacks to take away for you. I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that'll reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Hey guys, welcome back. We have been speaking with Sandra Thompson. She is a emotional intelligence coach. She's got a huge heart and she's shared some really inspirational stories, but she's got 3 hacks to take away. So Sandra, share your 3 hacks.
Okay, number 1, listen. Now, I know a lot of you will be like, I listen all the time. Listen intently, or as Tom Peters calls it, listen fiercely. Because when you listen fiercely, you will notice words that are missing from a sentence. You'll notice the emphasis that people have on particular things. You'll notice the type of body language, tone of voice, and all of these marvelous signals that we get when we are paying full attention. It will make a massive difference to you because you will understand far more of what's going on. And here's the amazing thing. The person who is telling you and you are listening to what they're saying will feel like $1 million because you are valuing them, you are present in the space. That's number 1. Number 2, travel as much as you can. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but
Absolutely.
Please, even National Geographic, you don't even have to leave your home. Please explore cultures, understand more about what it is like to be different types of people, because your curiosity, the questions you might have, the bizarre, the incredible, the unimaginable will help you do one thing, which is to increase your vocabulary. It will help you do what neuroscientists call emotional granularity. Now, when you have emotional granularity, it means that you have a wide spectrum of words you can use to describe how you're feeling, to describe a situation with far more granularity which means other people can understand you better and they can relate to you better. And I just think that travel, even in your mind, watching TV programs, actually getting out and seeing stuff, gives you that incredible gift. The final thing is gratitude. Now, I teach my students this and they think I'm a bit crazy, but I say to them, do you know, before you go to bed, if you can, write down just 3 things that you're grateful for. Maybe even acts of kindness, tiny acts of kindness that you have experienced during that day. Because here's the thing, if you can start to bank all of those, the chances are that you will have a more positive outlook. You will be grounded back in more positivity. And we haven't got long enough on this particular program to talk about it. But positivity, 1, has a ripple effect on others. 2, you're going to sleep so much better. And 3, it brings you back to good things that will then change the emphasis of the day, the focus, and you might perhaps turn down the volume of some things that perhaps didn't go your way, because you'll remember those 3 things because you would have written them down in a journal, on a scrap of paper, whatever you want to do. But take the time. I think you're going to love it.
Oh my God, those are some really powerful hacks. I'm going to have to start writing those things down too, because I'm always forgetting or falling asleep, putting my kid to sleep, and then waking up at 3 a.m. Where am I? I totally love those hacks. Thank you so much, Sandra. All right, let's jump into these quick questions. Number 1, what is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
Acting.
Oh, I love it.
I did RADA exams. I actually got to silver, and then for some reason I didn't do gold, but acting, definitely.
It's powerful. There's a whole episode on acting, but next question, what did you want to be when you were a child?
Well, when I was 15, all I wanted to do was to fly around the world. And I just needed to find a way to do it, which is why I wanted to work in the airlines. I didn't necessarily want to be an air hostess,
Sure,
but I definitely wanted to be able to just go everywhere and see everything, because my elder sister works in the airline and all she seemed to do was go everywhere and see everything.
Nice, I love that. It's the... There's a term for it. I can't remember, but it's what you see around you is what you want to do, because that's what's inspiring you. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
I rather like The Office with Ricky Gervais, the UK version.
Yeah.
And I love Blackadder. You have to have a certain type of humor to like Blackadder. It was around in the 70s and 80s, Rowan Atkinson. But even now, when I know what's coming, I know the words, I still laugh like a drain.
Okay. So you mentioned Rowan Atkinson, and my kids love Mr. Bean. I did not know that he had anything else other than Mr. Bean. I've seen him in other movies. He's got a rather very thick accent, or was that a show?
He does have a thick accent, but I think that there's something quite important here. Sorry, everyone. I'm not keen on Mr. Bean. He drives me nuts. But when he was Blackadder in Blackadder, he was priceless. But it's most certainly very sharp, very dry wit. So if you're not a fan of that, don't worry about it. But
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Knock
Blackadder.
yourself out.
The third. He's been in quite a few movies. Blackadder. I'm gonna have to look those up. All right. Next question. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
What movie would I choose if I got to
play a character in it?
Play a character in it. Is it really bad to say The Wolf of Wall Street?
I don't think it is.
Okay, The Wolf of Wall Street.
So you'd play the character of.
His name is John Jensen. No, what's the main character?
I know.
Oh, his name is.
He's very attractive. He's been in Titanic.
Oh, Leonardo
DiCaprio.
Is it Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember the name of the actual person.
Oh, actual person. Okay.
But he's gone out of my head. But I just thought that film was a riot.
Yeah. Jordan Belfort.
Yes.
Belfort was the author.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
He still does. He does. What does he do? He gives talks. I actually sent my my partner's middle child to go and see him give a talk because he was such a big fan of his.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's amazing. Our next question is, who is your favorite superhero?
Wonder Woman. I mean, come on.
Come on.
I grew
Absolutely.
I grew up with Wonder Woman, and when I watch it now, I think, oh dear.
Yeah.
Why? But the music is I mean, why wouldn't you love that?
Mm-hmm. The music is really powerful. I when we heard a little bit of glimpse of the music in Batman versus Superman, like here comes Wonder Woman. Here she comes.
She's got bangles that she throws at people, and like a whip thing, and a belt thing, and a head thing. I mean, come on, she's ready for anything.
She's ready for anything. Absolutely. She's a true Amazon. Our last question: if you were a board game, what would it be?
Pictionary.
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard of that game in a very long time. That's a really fun game.
Yeah,
all right.
I think Pictionary, because I think that it caters for all ages and abilities.
It does.
And you can get away with cheating quite easily.
Very easily. Awesome. Sandra, well, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your wisdom, and the stories you've shared. This was a lot of fun. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Where can the superpreneurs find you?
At LinkedIn. I'm hanging out there most days. And it's where I'll post notifications of courses or talks or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's CXEI Sandra Thompson or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah,
a CX educator.
I'll be sure to include the links, to the show notes so then people can get directly to you.
Time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies.
Thank you again.
We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.